Hi, and welcome to the Wealth Rebellion Podcast. I'm incredibly excited to introduce my new guest, Kelly Keefe, into this episode. And in this episode, we will be talking about the power of having a millionaire mindset and also what it takes to create a very wealthy business, but also what are the implications of surrounding yourself with people that have a mindset that's abundant. And also, what are the implications when you don't do that? And so I hope that you allow me to really feel into the space, to really enjoy it as much as I do. And then we'll get right started. Kelly is the creator of the Heartspace, where she supports leaders, entrepreneurs, and spiritual seekers to elevate to their fullest expression and magnetism, to create their happiest, healthiest, and wealthiest self-aligned with God. She is the transformation, empowerment, and abundance coach, Reiki master teacher, and vibrational artist, passionate about helping people live from their heart space. She's a global speaker and international best-selling author serving globally, and Kelly provides transformational coaching, group programs, and retreats supporting you to live your highest and truest self. Kelly, welcome.
Thank you, darling. I just wanted to carry you around and you read it in your accent everywhere. Please. It's so much better in your voice.
Thank you so much. It's not even, well, I was going to say it's not even my accent, but I don't know, a mix of German and English. We're just going to go with it.
It's your signature. It's your own unique essence and signature.
There we go. You heard it here first. The first German someone wants to listen to in an English language. I apologize for nothing. Kelly, it is fantastic to have you on the show, and thank you so much for agreeing to come here. I loved chatting with you. Like when I met you for the very first time, I loved the energy that you brought to the table. So, Kelly, let's get into the conversation. Let's get started already, because I'm very excited for the audience to hear what it is that you have to share with them, because I think it's one of these like very powerful and empowering conversations, and I can't wait. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about what it is? Like, what does now look like? What is it that you currently do? How did it all start?
Sure. We'll do a quick little, where are we at in the back roll? I got you. And such a joy to be here. Same, right? I was like, when we got off the first call, she was like, oh, yes, one of my kind. Where are we now? I'm happy. I'm healthy. I'm wealthy. I'm doing good. God is good is really, the reality that we're walking in. The Heartspace is the organization where we have an amazing team where everyone shares the vision, is excited by what we're doing. And essentially we just gather incredible humans who know that they are powerful and there's things to do in the world and they want to and they deserve to be happy, healthy, and wealthy. And be most important of it all, attuned in their strong spiritual life, being in that attunement to God so that way things can align and flow. And we do that through the various different programs and retreats around the world and one-on-one coaching. So I travel often. We have a joke amongst my community. I know someone's become like pretty close to me when anytime we talk, we start the conversation with, so where in the world is Kelly? While also spending much more time now with family in New Jersey, as my nephew is 2.5. He can now say my name and, he asks if I'm coming over to play. So I've recently shifted priorities to being like, oh, family's like really up there, where a lot of the time the priority was work and my career and building this, because we can have everything, but we can't have everything all at once. And learning the game of shifting priorities, knowing what season to focus our energy at has kind of been that. And I started this journey in 2016, and it started with doing single Reiki sessions. And then it's grown over the years. And there's a lot of me starting that in scarcity mindset and failing a lot and all the it's been a lot of shifts and a lot of changes over the years. That's a little glimpse of, what we're up to now.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And it obviously, I had the very fortunate opportunity to already have heard some of the story, but I wanted it in your own words so that everyone else had the same opportunity. Kelly, something that I thought was really interesting when we first spoke is the story of how you actually grew to where you are now, because 2016 is not that long ago.
Yeah.
It's a decent time, but it's not that long ago. And let's start with the idea of this wealth, this abundance, something that you so beautifully said. You're wealthy, you're happy, God is good, all of these beautiful things. It takes quite a bit to get to that point. Has it always been that way?
It sure does. No, not at all. I mean, has God always been good? Yes. Now, understanding, was it always there and available? Yes. Was my mindset and my creation there? No. You know, I went right out of school, I had a startup company. So I had the entrepreneur bug from the jump. And I started to realize as I was going through my own waves of this journey of the passion's here, and I know I'm meant to do this. You know, I shifted my major from education to business, not understanding why, being brought into the startup, and I knew creating my own thing was to be. Reiki came to me in a meditation out of nowhere. I was studying the law of attraction and all of the things. And as I was serving, and my bank account and my business structure, nothing was aligning to like, but I can see it. Like, I know in my heart this is what I'm meant to be doing. I had to really start to get real and say, okay, what's going on that isn't in alignment with how to do this? And one of the big themes I realized as I would have momentum, fail, or this and burn out, you know, was I have to listen better to the mentors who are around me and also remember I'm meant to be wealthy this lifetime. And a big indicator of that for me was because I kept attracting millionaires and multimillionaires into my world. You know, my first business partner, he was the former vice president of Johnson and Johnson. And the way that it just came together and the lifestyles that we would go to and this and that, and like many, I felt like they were like hunting me down out in the wild. You know, like millionaires and multimillionaires were just hunting me down and wanting to mentor me, wanting to keep me in their field, invite me into opportunities. And even when I would go, looking back now, I could see I had a barrier up. And that was all because of the subconscious beliefs I had within myself. And so it was a lot of doing the deep work of looking at what are my subconscious beliefs around money, around my self-worth, around receiving help, all of these different things that is a part of the human experience for many of us. That if something's stirring in you as you're listening to this right now, like, ooh, we're touching on something, which is great. So it's giving a little bit of an inkling of what might be going on there. You know, a big one for me when I was in a retreat that was focused on money breakthroughs and things of that nature, where I dialed into at a young age because my parents weren't emotionally available. And their way to show that they loved me was to give me money and make sure I was provided for. And I remember writing in my journal at a young age, I don't want money, I want love. And that was how I was really navigating the world for a while. And I had to rewrite that by, oh, no. I want money. I want a lot of money. I love money. And I want love. Like, we can have both. So that was a big one. And as I started to break through that and start to allow these mentors and these energies who wanted to support me to realize they're not bad. They're not evil. They're actually really good, fun humans. And I started changing my circle and realizing we're having different conversations than I would when I was at my scarcity level. And started to naturally not, throw people out to the wayside, but just start to navigate and attract more and more people who have a healthy relationship with money, who enjoy money. And it started to naturally change my baseline, and it's continued to grow along the way.
Talk to me a little bit about the changing of conversation, because that's something like one of the many things that you've just mentioned. I've made a few notes of some of the points that I hopefully get to touch on. What did that look like? Like, what were the conversations that you started moving into? How were they different from potentially what you called a scarcity mindset?
Yeah. Well, one, even beyond the words at first, when we're all energy, right? Like there's the electromagnetic field. Remembering I'm a Reiki master, so I'm always in the world of energy. But there's when we're in proximity to anyone, there's an auric communication happening as well. And someone who is operating from a wealth mindset, they're carrying a very different wave within their auric field. And there's a communication happening at the subtle energy levels. And that can be when after you spend some time with someone and you walk away and you're just like, oh, I feel so good. And maybe a new idea pops up. Or you leave someone in and all of a sudden you just realize you're in a bad mood, or like, you're carrying stuff. Our auras, our energy field is talking at large. So I began to notice the more that I'm circulating myself in these areas with wealth, I would just naturally in my free time, let me spend more time looking up, investing, or, let me, these natural things where I was like, I didn't even realize I was doing it, the subtle shifts. But then when we're talking the actual conversations, it's just talking bigger money. Say, when I would be working with someone where it's like, okay, maybe we can, find someone to sponsor us and give us $1,000 to put on an event, in like the beginning of things, and we're like, wow, that's dreaming big, to then being like, okay, so we're going to be pulling in, $1 billion, buying $5 million properties for the houses, this and that. It expands the mind. I remember the first time that I was brought into a side project, because anyone listening, learn some skills, show up fully and everything, and be open for side hustles and side money expectations. When you open the doors for money, it'll come in unexpected ways.
So true.
And the first time I had a conversation where they said, hey, do you want to do, da 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 da, when we close it, it'll be a 2% of the deal. And I was like, 2%? But then when I looked at the numbers, I said, oh, that's 40K. And I said, oh, I can have a 40K day as my side hustle. It just starts to open the mind. We're talking about taxes, talking about houses, anything that it's a different game. I like to look at it as we step into our wealth mindset, we're having a better understanding of how the rules of this game work. We've actually learned them so we can play it. Where at the scarcity mindset, it's much more, I don't understand the game. I don't even realize I don't understand the game.
Yes. I was nodding so hard. If you're watching the video, you will have seen this, but if you're listening to this on the actual podcast platform, you won't see my head was just shaking like one of these little dolls that you have in the car sometimes, like these bobbleheads. I couldn't agree more. It's baseline changing, and it does make a difference, right? 2%, for instance, isn't always 2%. It depends what the 2% is off. So true. I love that reflection. Something that you said that I would love for you to just go in a little bit deeper, because something that I see a lot in these conversations is essentially, and in your words, as best as I can, I'm paraphrasing, is you said that you were circulating yourself in what wealth looked like, right? So you were circulating around wealth. I remember way at the start of my journey, I heard that a lot when I was listening to your Mary Folios and your Denise Staffel Thomases and your so many like Richard Branson's, like your usuals, right? I was hearing that a lot. And I know, even though it's not always beginners that are listening, for instance, but it's everyone, it's really hard to grasp. It's always these kinds of things, kind of like, it when you see it. But what does it look like? What does someone have to do when they might go and they're like, well, I make like my 2, 3, 4, 5 grand a month, but I don't feel wealthy, or not even that. Like, what does it look like? What does someone have to do to start circulating themselves in wealth? And what did you do particularly when maybe it wasn't there yet, air quotes?
Yeah, totally. It's our mind, its job is to prove we're right.
Amen.
So anything we're telling ourselves, it's going to start this radar for proof that we're correct. And the subconscious mind doesn't know what's real and what's not real. So when we go experience something, if we're telling ourselves, this is my reality, this is my reality, I have the money to do this, da 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 da, life will start to catch up and meet it. So some things that along my way through reading various different books and podcast mentors along the way, some things that have been very helpful, and I still do to this day, get a crisp $100 bill. Sometimes I do, now like, a few or five, whatever, and keep it in the wallet and carry it with you everywhere and don't spend it. And then start to bring yourself into luxury stores or, look up 5-star coffee shops in your area or 5-star hotels and just go and be in those areas and go shopping. For those who are listening, I'm air quoting with my fingers. Go shopping and look at the things you love and say, I could buy that. I'm choosing not to today. Oh, I could buy this, but I'm choosing not to today. And that shifts it from, oh, I can never buy this. Or, oh, like, look at the price of this. No. I could buy this right now, but I'm just choosing not to. That will start to shift when we bring ourselves into these environments where, again, talking of the subtle energies, these places where people who have grown to have a healthy relationship with money, who feel comfortable in wealth, just going and being in those environments can affect the subtle bodies. And you never know who you'll meet. Just go hanging out in those places. You may bump into an opportunity or whatever that. So those are some, very simple ones that anyone could do today. Crisp $100 bill. Keep that in your wallet. Look at it. Say thank you. And then, go and put yourself in luxury places. Go try some stuff on. Look at it. Just think, oh my God, I love this. Just not today. Empower yourself. You're choosing not to buy it today. I totally could. The money's in my bank. I'm just choosing not to today.
I love that. And I can confirm it definitely works. That's the beautiful thing. It's just when we're in a state, it's like you said. So I recently did an episode where I talked about the power of the beliefs and just like, how does someone show up when they feel that they can't do something and when we're not? And you kind of, it was so serendipitous. Like, I think a couple of days after the episode aired, we actually started talking and I'm like, oh my God, I now have I now have someone else who says this. It's not just me, because I like having like lots of different touch points of validating the idea of just like, look, it's not like I'm not pulling this out of my ass. I'm not making this up. And so I love it so much because we underestimate. It's something that I keep saying. And you can probably say a few words on this as well. It's no accident that every successful, again, air quotes, person that we see out there that gets interviewed in their TED Talks and in their documentaries and on Netflix and what have you, it is absolutely no accident that mindset is the number one thing they all throughout, like 100% of the time. Your Conor McGregor's, your Richard Branson's, your Stephen Bartlett's, all of them are all like, I need to have a good mind. I need to have a good mindset maintenance. And what is the one thing that people in a scarcity mindset don't do? Absolutely. Mindset maintenance.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, the 6 inches between the ears is everything. Because when we think about it, our thoughts create our words create our actions create our habits create our character, and our character creates our destiny. So quite literally, our destiny is directly correlated to our thoughts. It all stems from our thoughts. And we are energy. We exude this electromagnetic field, and there's tons of science to it. If you're like, oh, we're going woo-woo, it's science. I've actually grounded it all into just much more data these days, which is refreshing and great for speaking. But we are electric. We have this waves that we're sending off, and we're a magnet. So whatever wave we're sending off we are then attracting it with our magnet. And what starts those waves is our thoughts, because our thoughts are also controlling our emotions. If we're able to have that strong mindset of bringing it back, and again, it's a radar. Whatever I'm telling myself is going to be shown to me as true. Whatever I tell myself is going to be shown to me as true. So yeah, I'm very grateful we're on the same wave too.
I love it so much, because I'm hoping that it is a confirmation, because you probably have this with your clients as well when you're teaching your retreats, and like really this space of abundance. There's probably a lot of work around the mindset that you have to do with people there as well, right?
Oh, totally.
What's sort of like the point that most people tend to come to you for? Like, what's the problem or the pain that people tend to find around this particular thing?
Yeah, good question. You know, a lot of the time it is the space of that readiness of I'm ready to step fully into my power, hit my next level, or, you know, what that is for them, and not knowing how to get there, or very aware that there's a block and don't know how to put that down and let it go is there. And what I find is a very common thing is the beliefs will always have a different hue. I like to say it's like a diamond. It's the same diamond, but we just have to shine we shine the light on it. It's a little bit of a different hue of it, but it's always the same diamond. And especially with money, there's a lot of beliefs of it's not safe to have it, or I won't be loved if I have it. I can't control, you know, it always boils down to this idea that it's not good for me. And usually it's because we associate money with someone we have deep inner work to do around. We have mommy issues, daddy issues, didn't have mommy or daddy issues, whatever it may be. It's usually a direct correlation. And so our relationship to money or to our success or this and that, we avoid because there's an association with someone, an actual person that we haven't wanted to go to yet.
That one comes up a lot when I'm speaking with people as well. It's not safe to be wealthy. I'm not worthy of being wealthy. I don't like, as far as I'm concerned, like when I do this kind of work, 99% of the time, it always boils down to not being deserving and not being worthy. It's always what it tends to boil down to. And something that you mentioned earlier at the very beginning of the conversation was that you knew that you were meant to be wealthy. That was something that you knew. Tell me a little bit about how that started. So you said, for instance, as a little girl, you had your journal, and did you grow up fairly wealthy?
My family I never had to worry about money. I didn't know that, you know, money wasn't talked about with me. It was just we never had to worry about money. I was very fortunate. Whatever I wanted, I had within reason, but we weren't like balling on yachts, this and that. Yeah, we were fine. We were well off. Yeah.
And would you say that would have also helped you along with the journey of your mindset, as opposed to someone who might grow up in a little bit of what we would consider a poorer household, or someone who even grows up in a household that has like a celebrity household, for instance? Would you say that would start shaping things as well?
Yes, but I took an interesting path because, again, they weren't emotionally available. So I perceived everything that was happening as, I don't want this. I don't want to be anything like these people. I don't want money. I don't want this. So I rebelled against everything that was there. And I was very young. I was 14 when I had my first like serious relationship. We were far too serious for a 14 and a 16-year-old. When I look back at it, like, oh, what an interesting soul contract. But his family was extremely poverty stricken in the hood of Trenton. So I actually spent during, you know, those adolescent years, I spent a lot of time in a very poor area where they were. So I chose to place myself in those areas where they'd always say, you don't need money, you need love. Like we have love, we don't need money. So I started to get stew in all of that. And so I rebelled against what was available. And that, it took the rewiring of the time I spent there. I mean, we were together for 3 years. So from 14 to 17, that was my reality. And I continued to pick partners similar, very poor. And I would have the money, I was working like 3 jobs because I always knew I loved money as a part of my dharma at a soul level. I would hustle, but I was paying for stuff and hanging out in, the ghetto and this and that. So it was available to me, but I rebelled and I actually went the other way and got to experience. I have a deep compassion for poverty-stricken areas and, that experience as well.
I think that that's a very interesting and important term, compassion. I'd love to hear your take on this before I share my opinion. Would you say that compassion and empathy are a requirement to start elevating your frequency in that way and to sort of vibrate in that aura, as you so beautifully said?
Juicy question. Yeah, she just gave codes. Totally. It brings me back in 2017, I went to India. I had the honor of sitting with the Dalai Lama for 3 days and receiving his teachings. And one of the biggest ones that stuck with me was him saying, we don't need more sympathy in the world. Sympathy is a belittling, it's I'm higher than you, and it just keeps both of you stuck in the muck and the mud. What the world needs is more compassion. What we need from each and every one of you is more compassion. Because compassion says, I will sit with you. Here, come sit with me. You lift them up to where you are and allow things to just be and hit a space of love and acceptance. And as we know, the more that we step into love and acceptance and, gratitude for even the muck, the compassion, wow, I see where you're at and I love you through it. And I know that doesn't change anything other than we're love and abundance. It continues to open and expand us, which I think is so beautiful when we start to sit in these circles of, money's not a thing. It's a part of our reality, and I love it because I'm in a relationship with it, and I love everyone. I have compassion for money. I have love and compassion for money too. It's an entity. It's really beautiful to see compassion for everyone. The love and the joy expands to everyone and everything. I'm very curious of your opinion on it.
I loved your take on it. I couldn't agree more. I love and I'm very wowed by the fact that you were being taught by the Dalai Lama himself. That's what a lifetime achievement. That's really cool. I would actually go as far as to say that it's a prerequisite to wealth, because there are a lot of wealthy, I'm going to put air quotes on it, there are a lot of wealthy people out there who operate from a very disempowered state, and they're not actually rich. Or rather, rich people that aren't wealthy is probably the better term to say it, because you can have a lot of stuff, a lot of shit around you, a lot of money around you, but if you're a miserable little shit and you hate everything, all you're going to do is you're going to buy more things to have some resemblance of control in your life. And so I would just add that as far as I'm concerned, it's actually a prerequisite to creating wealth, sustainable wealth, because yes, you're absolutely right. Money is a thing. We could replace money with screwdrivers tomorrow. Do we just say, oh, I have like 10,000 screwdrivers? Like, it wouldn't mean anything to us. But the moment we put a dollar bill in front of it, it's just like, oh no, I'm either worthy or I'm not worthy, or I'm exactly this amount of worth. And it's just like, okay, so replace that with screwdrivers, replace that with nails, replace that with like your 10,000 books worth. Like, really? Like, it makes no difference. And I think that, and that would have been a question I would have asked you, but I'm kind of taking the step, but I'd love to still hear your take on it. I would say that when we allow ourselves to experience compassion and curiosity, that they're actually the things that most people that we look up to, that we consider to be wealthy, successful, who we admire to be, right? The rich people and the wealthy people that aren't dicks, essentially.
Yeah.
That's what they all have in common: curiosity, compassion, empathy, not sympathy, like you said, empathy. And so, yeah, like, love to hear your take on it as well.
Yeah. I love, like, I'm like, ooh, we just touched on such a juicy gem, where what I'm hearing when you say that is the difference between rich and wealth is the compassion and the curiosity, aka the soul. Which brings us back to when you're in alignment, when you feel that connection and understand you're a spiritual being having a human experience, and you find what your connection to God is, and whatever that means for you in this moment, it brings the soul back into it. And then it's that understanding of, oh, I'm meant to have this. Like, we're children of God. Like who's your dad? Like, he wants to spoil us. Like, oh,
some might say Pedro Pascal, according to the internet, but that's I don't know. I'm so sorry. It's just like when you said, no, who's your dad? I just see this like Pedro Pascal meme that's circulating everywhere.
I see a t-shirt in the making. Get it on the swag shop. Get it on the merch.
I regret nothing. I love it. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean
No, please. It's so good. It's so like, please. This is bon appetit.
Amazing. Yeah, no, and it's so beautiful that this kind of comes up. I'm gonna change course a little bit, Kelly, because there again, like, I've made so many notes of the things that you said. You said something in the very beginning that you had momentum and you failed. You had momentum and you failed. And I think it would be really cool to also talk about what that looked like for you in a little bit more detail, because it's when we hear stories of success, and again, like, whether we're looking at starting, whether we're looking at gaining 5 or 6 or 7 figures, doesn't really matter. But whenever we see someone who we perceive as ahead of us, we hear these success stories and they're all like compressed, right? The timeline's always compressed. And when we're in it, would you mind talking to us a little bit about that? Like, what did it look like? You gained momentum. What did failing look like?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And it varied what the fail looked like. I mean, let's take it all the way back. In 2011, I started that startup. It started as an invitation to go as an intern, and then quickly became, okay, cool, here's equity and let's do the things. And 2 years, I poured myself into this. And then we had to really look at, after 2 years, it was an expensive hobby. It was not a business, and so we had to liquidate assets and off we went. And because it was a startup, and, looking back, I was young, naive. I wasn't asking for a pay that I should have been getting, because I was just like, oh, this is what a startup culture is. That's a conversation for another time, all my friends. Let's have that. Where I didn't have, much income coming in. So I was also like, oh, you have to hustle. You don't make much in entrepreneurship. But 2 years in, it was gone. And I was really in that space of like, what do I do now? We failed. I was like, this is going to be it, and we're going to be rich. But it wasn't, and so I went into the soul searching, and, I did some nannying, and I went and did work in the foster care system. I just did the things until the clarity came to start again, and with the Heartspace, there's a lot of learnings of how do I structure a sustainable business of services that for a long time, it was me standing there and channeling energy. It was never my energy giving, but channeling energy, and still only charging, maybe $120 an hour, which isn't a bad hourly, but, when it's me and my focus and doing the admin work and this, I would hit burnout so often, and I didn't have the consistency of the revenues, where we didn't build a model that we could know money was coming in. I was doing everything. And I'm a projector by human design. So my energy levels out, of course. Why am I not even surprised?
I should have. Do you know what? I forgot to ask you what your human design is.
I'm a projector 2-4.
2-4.
I'm sorry, 2-5. 2-5.
Oh,
Hermit heretic.
Hermit heretic. I'm a 5-1.
You're a 5-1. Amazing. I'm not even surprised. So for those who are like, what's that mean? So projectors, again, I know, girl, this episode could be like 5 hours. We could just jam out forever.
Yes.
Projectors, we don't have a defined sacral center. So meaning we work best in like sprints and lots of rest and spaciousness. We thrive in guiding others, seeing systems that could be made to optimize something, can see the big picture and kind of say, go that way, do this, this, and this. That's why we make great coaches and guides and all the things that we're up to right now. So I didn't know that at the time. So I was on that hustle culture. So the fails, for the short of the long, for the sake of us touching a million other things as well, was the fails would look like not knowing how to sustain my energy.
Yeah.
And I would hit burnouts. And because it was my energy that, I was having to do, and I was burnt out, I was out of commission. Also just not pricing right. And, it varied. But when we look at what was the problem and what someone could take of this to avoid some potholes on it. So I want to give you something tangible, y'all, what is a sustainable system that you can put in place that can help to have revenues coming in? And please take my guidance. I mean, do whatever you want. You're a human. Do whatever the fuck you want. But outsource, delegate, get a VA, give some tasks to other humans, and trust. That is something that mentors told me from the jump. And I was like, no, I'm an entrepreneur. I have to do it myself because I have to prove I'm worthy and I can do it. And I'm going to prove to everyone. And okay, literally was just screwing myself with it changed everything. Finally letting go of control and starting to bring on a team and letting the reins go and step into that leadership and sharing the vision changed everything.
I love that. And I love that I was thinking a little bit of a behind the scenes for everyone and for you as well, Kelly. I was just like, before we went onto the episode and after we got off the call, I should have asked you about your human design. And then I went on holiday and then I didn't have time. And now we're here. And I'm like, I'll ask you after. But the fact that you actually just brought it up, because I use human design a lot in my business, it's how I teach. It's absolutely fantastic. The fact that it just came up so naturally, I love it, because I love using this as an example. When I'll put out the bio and I'll put everything in the intro underneath, I will add in, with your permission, obviously, that you are a 2-5 projector, because I think for a lot of projectors, and tell me if you had a similar thing, and especially as a fifth line, like us fifth lines, we have a lot of empathy for each other. There's a lot of projection going on. Yeah. A lot of projections for fifth lines. For anyone who doesn't know human design, when you're a fifth line, you don't need to know a lot about it just yet. But as a fifth line, you are part of this karmic mirror. People will put a lot of their projections onto you. And if you are taking this on as yourself, you can kind of just become like the bit of a heretic that gets burned at the stake because you burn out and you can't help everyone. But if you have strong boundaries, you can actually lead them to their highest self and their truest essence. So that's something that fifth lines really struggle with. So when you said, for instance, so that makes in my head, I was just like momentum and failing. I'm like, are we dealing with a third or a sixth line here? Let's find out.
I love it. I love that you use it too.
So when you had that momentum, and in the beginning, before you started on your human design journey, before you started looking into sort of abundance mindset and really cultivating and immersing yourself into all of these things, did you experience a lot of that traditional bitterness that we often find ourselves in as projectors?
Definitely. And I feel, in addition to just that symptom that can come from, and Lord, yes, it's so real. The projections are so real, and getting to learn when to say stop. No, and I'm a Virgo, so I'm a healer by nature, like it goes deep, like it just keeps going. But when I started to realize, okay, this isn't about me, and this is actually, and like that strength, and I'm so grateful for the teachers in my life where, I like to look at it as I have a council. I have mentors for wealth. I have mentors for business. I have mentors for my spiritual growth. My 20s was primarily traveling the world, sitting with spiritual leaders and elders, and them teaching me how to have strong, energetic boundaries and ground my ass, like to actually learn that, hey, be here and hone this. So I feel once we went deeper into those, I understood boundaries and, oh, this is my space. This is not, because I also am almost completely open in my human design. So I take on a lot as is. It's there. It's quite a incarnation that I came into this time. But yeah, there'd be times where I'm like, I'm not appreciated. I'm pouring so much, and there'd be a sense of not feeling appreciated and have that bitterness. But it was simply my own reflection of giving so much and people pleasing, because I was trying to prove that I was worthy and I was trying to get love, which is just my own unhealthy, toxic behaviors that were at play. So I feel like it's almost like, haha, joke's on me, because it wasn't even about anyone else all along.
Do you know what? This is ultimately it, though. So when I certified in NLP, and then I certified in the elevated belief method from my friend Relinda, and then I did human design, and I did all of these wonderful things. The one thing that we always talk about is personal responsibility. And that's ultimately, it's like when you say, haha, the joke's on me, it's just like, yeah, the joke is on us, because ultimately it's no one else's responsibility to make sure that we're okay. And I remember a time, even before human design, where when someone would say this to me, like you would read this in the self-help books, maybe you've done the same thing, you would read this in the self-help books, and it's just like, it's no one else's responsibility what you feel, and your emotions are your own, and it's your responsibility how you react. I was so fucking triggered in the very beginning. I was just like, what do you mean? What do you mean that person, that what, they don't have to be nice to me when I'm nice to them? They don't have to give me something when I'm doing something? And obviously hindsight 2020, I'm just like, wow. Oh, wow. Does it hit differently?
Oh, yes. Like I did a program called Landmark, and that's when like really that first started to get confronting of, reality versus story, and the lenses that we put on things, and taking accountability, rectifying, all of it. Very confronting stuff where I was just like, oh, this is all about me. I have to take control. And I feel that coincides with integrity. When we allow ourselves to say, I'm going to move through life with integrity through and through in every aspect of my life, that coincides with accountability. No one's coming to save us. How can I show up in this? And that strengthens every opportunity, every relationship, a lifetime one, side deal I was doing with someone, this and that. We had to change the terms of the agreement. I went foolish mistake on me, where all right, we had to change the terms. I wasn't happy about it because it's a lot less money on this particular deal. But we renegotiated, okay, when it closes, I'll give you X amount for this, I said, cool, you'll send over the new agreement next week, written, because always get everything written, have everyone sign everyone, because it's a game. Didn't get sent, I didn't send it out. When we had the final conversation, said, okay, cool, if we're closing it Monday, I'll send X amount, and it was a different amount said. And I said, hey, I have it written down here, it's this amount, no, I didn't say that. And I could have gone into, it is what it is, but I could have gone into, that's a whole nother conversation, girl. Well, that's off the podcast conversation. But I could have gone into, listen, that it, popped off and this and that. But the truth of the reality is I have to take accountability. I could have easily sent an email saying, hey, this is the simple agreement. We said this, just please reply confirmed. So I said on the call, listen, I know I did not hear and write incorrectly, but I'll take accountability for this. I'll take the fall. That's leadership. Being willing to fall on the sword over and over and over and over again. That's leadership. Not, oh, you were wrong, this and that. I said, moving forward, I'll make sure if we ever do anything together again, everything's in writing. And if I don't hear it from you, I'll make sure I do it. I take accountability. So it's on me. It keeps the respect, and it was a lesson for me. It is on me. So when we get out of blame, that really enhances that space of everything is a learning opportunity. How can I show up better? How can I show up more empowered? Especially as women in business, when we're dealing with men who are also steps ahead of us in just that one scope. I'm sure it's different things. We're all leading something. It's always a learning opportunity. How can I step further into accountability and just learn and get better?
I love that. And I love that reflection. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'm sure you've got lots of stories as well. And yeah, that might have to be another episode in the future because I find it fascinating as well. But there are so many experiences that I think you and I could share when we were like, oh, that was a little bit naive of us and I should have done it that way. But in the moment, it felt like they wronged me and I'm allowed to react in this way. And it's very easy to have ego respond with wanting to protect your pride of like, well, actually, why didn't you look through that email? Why didn't you say something? And usually it comes down to pride. And as a projector, especially when we don't feel seen, that can really like hit us right in the head. It's just like, but you should have told me that this was the thing. You should have not changed the price. And you should have, it's just like, no. It's a fascinating story. And I would recommend that you find out what your human design is. Absolutely. It's one of the things that has helped me the most. I'm still finding out how I'm going to record an episode on human design in and of itself, but I love that this necessarily sort of came up. So, I mean, Kelly, yes, we could talk for another 5 hours for sure. It's one of, I love it when these conversations are like, this is the topic that we've planned. It's just like, oh, but now we're talking about all of these cool things as well.
Yes.
Let's quickly sort of like bring it back to the topic of abundance mindset, bring it back to the topic of the difference. What would you say the difference is between the Kelly that was surrounding herself with the, like, what is it potentially that you were telling yourself about yourself? What was the narrative like when you were in a bit more of a poverty mindset versus when you allowed yourself to be wealthy?
Yes. Oh, good question. A lot of I'll give a couple for each because, as you know, it's a correlation of them. One of them, when in poverty was, I want love, not money. That was a really big one for me. I don't want money. I want love. I don't need money. I need love.
I could do this for free. I could do this for free.
Yeah, like that was, and like when I tapped in and saw my little one, holding that, and I was like, oh girl, we can fix this, and then was the, people aren't going to want to be my friends. People aren't going to like me. I'm going to lose my friends if I hit the level of success I know I'm destined for. And what I operate from now is I am so grateful for the people who are now in my circle who match my frequency. I'm so curious of who else I'm going to meet in the rooms I'm going to be sitting. I'm so grateful that there's other people who ride this wave of ambition and spirituality and desire to make impact and love money. It's a gratitude of like, there's people out there. There's always people who will match your energy. There's billions of people on the planet. Like you'll find them. So I feel that was, I can have love and money. And the more money I'm having, I'm finding I love the people around me who are also matching that frequency.
Beautifully said. And there's that word again, curiosity. We're going to close this out in a second, but it's something that keeps coming back. I find that playfulness, curiosity, compassion, what we talked about, they're all prerequisites for wealth. And whether wealth means money for you or whether wealth means something else for you, that's entirely up for you. But I think that curiosity is the opposite of blaming. And so maybe before we close this out, what are your thoughts on this? Like something that I've maybe, let me quickly explain, because there are words coming out of my mouth that I don't think that make any sense. When I speak with people and I look at sort of Adina 5, 6, 7 years ago, and when I see myself now, something that I've really cultivated and that I'm quite proud of is this curiosity, because that has allowed me to attract money, that has allowed me to attract opportunities, it's allowed me to attract wealth in all kinds of forms. I mean, I live in a different country, for God's sake, from where I started out, and not everyone can do that as well, you know. I have access to technology. I've got access to like cool things. I can fly whenever I want to. I mean, that is amazing. And something that has allowed me to do that is to be curious. And past me 6, 7 years ago, and even before that, I would have gone into a room, like you said, and I would have blamed people. They were just like, oh, that person's arrogant. Oh, that person, like, what must they have done to have amassed such wealth? And you said it, you were just like, I go into a room and I'm curious. And so I want to close it out with this bit of curiosity. Do you have any thoughts, any comments on it?
Yeah, there's in a conversation recently, I'm blessed to say there's so many of these conversations. If I could name drop the other person to give a shout out, I would in this moment, but it's not here. For the sake of time, I'll leave a comment if it comes to me once this is published. But when we open ourselves to curiosity, it can open a whole nother world. So I use this image of, say you're in a room and there's a curtain all around the room. And if you don't, when you're not open to curiosity, you just kind of look around and you say, oh, well, this is where the room ends. This is what it is. And you look. And the moment you start to open curiosity, maybe you go over to one of the pieces of the curtain and you just lift it up and see what's underneath. And then because you lifted up and you saw what was underneath, there's this whole other world going on. It's like the Grey Poupon commercials back in the day. It's a whole nother like elaborate party and things going on. And you would have never known it was happening and been able to step into the room if you didn't get curious and open the curtain and just look at what was underneath. You would have just stayed in that room the whole time.
Beautiful reflection. I love so much of it. I'm hoping that you all got something out of this episode. I certainly did. It's always so invigorating when I have these conversations, and I'm hoping that we get to potentially have another episode where we talk about some of the other things that you talked about, because it's just such a cool episode to do and just such a cool conversation. Kelly, where can people find you? And I'll put the links in the show notes later. Where can people find you if they want to know more about you, if they want to hear more of your story, if they just want more of you?
Yeah, for sure. So you can go to the website, heartspace.co. You can also reach out to me on Instagram. I am Kelly Keefe. And, just send me a message. I'm pretty, I love new humans. I love connecting. So feel free to let me know what touched you, or if you have any questions, comments. And on the website, you can find, links to book a call with me. Feel free to schedule a free 30-minute drop-in and we can jam out and connect.
That's beautiful. I'll put the links in the show notes later. And Kelly, is there anything you said that you might have like a nice space where you can lead people to, like one of your meditations that you might want to hand out to some of the listeners?
Yes, darling. So in the show notes, there'll be a link to our store where there's a collection of guided meditations and journeys available. We're going to set it up so you can use the code Adina and you can get a guided meditation as a gift from us, just as a thank you for being a part of it, and enjoy. There's a range of simple grounding, energy clearings, amplifications. Choose your adventure, my friends.
How generous. I also love the choose your own adventure thing. Wouldn't that just be like choose your own adventure meditation? Someone please create.
I may write it today.
I love it. That would be so cool. Go to page 27. That would be a cool future self visualization. Go to page 59. I love it. That's really generous. Thank you so much. I hope that you take her up on the offer. Again, the links are going to be in the show notes. Choose your own adventure with the meditations. I'll put the code in the notes as well, so you can use it again. What a generous offer. And Kelly, thank you so much for having taken time out of your day to speak with us today, to share what it is that you shared. I hope that this story inspired you. I hope that it allowed you to see that wealth is all around you. And obviously, Kelly, if you have any closing thoughts, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for creating this. It's been such a joy, and I just adore you. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful, we were to say, be compassionate, be curious, and be open. I feel that's a great nutshell. You never know what will come in your field if you stay open.
I love this. Well, thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.